Welcome to CBC Windsor News at 6. I'm Meg Roberts. Thanks so much for spending part of your evening with us tonight. Well, storms are not only damaging, but they're expensive. We share with you the story of one town who's trying to mitigate both. Plus, a community built by descendants of the Underground Railroad is celebrating a monumental milestone. North Buxton hosts its 100th homecoming event this weekend. And we're going to introduce you to Bertha, the name a Windsor man has given to a nice summer surprise. We begin tonight in Essex County as municipalities continue to tally up the losses from last week's storms. The mayor of Essex is meeting with officials to look at ways the town can prepare for future natural disasters as the town seeks funding from the province. Dale Molnar has more.
This was the scene a week ago in McGregor, and the after picture, shot today, illustrates just how much water people in the area were dealing with. People on Parkside Street saw flooding.
I know a neighbor got severe damage, and he had a couple feet of water in his basement.
In Harrow, piles of debris which used to be in people's basements. On Monday, the town collected almost 130,000 kilograms of garbage. That's about 60,000 kilograms more than usual. And they collected 12 loads rather than the usual 5. This was the third major storm the town has had to deal with this year. Mayor Sherry Bondi met with town officials Thursday to discuss things the town might budget for next year to deal with any future disasters.
Perhaps, we want to buy, more generators. Public works offices should have generators. One of the things that occurred to us is sometimes our phone systems go down, right? If the cell phone towers go down. So potentially looking at backup methods for that. We discussed offering sandbags for residents and some of the challenges around there.
The town has also reached out to the province for some disaster relief funding to help people in the hardest hit areas, such as here in Harrow and in Colchester, people whose insurance won't cover the losses. People at the Harrow Fair like the idea.
It would help me immensely just in terms of trying to recoup some of the costs we spent with drying out the basement and painting and pulling up the flooring and all the other things we experienced last week.
This homeowner can't afford to pay the $15,000 in damage himself.
Yeah, it's too much for us. We just had a tree torn down from the last storm we had, and it cost $3,200 for that, so we don't have enough to fix the basement either.
When they get wet, they're useless.
John Revere in McGregor had 2 inches of water in his basement and it ruined all his baseboards. The insurance deductible is so high he's repairing the work himself and would like some provincial funding.
Yeah, it'd be nice to have some kind of help, but, feel bad for the people who don't have insurance.
CBC News reached out to Essex MPP Anthony Liardi for comment, but we were referred to the Ministry of Natural Resources. CBC is attempting to get a comment. Meanwhile, Sherry Bondi and the Deputy Mayor will be meeting with residents in all the affected areas, starting with a meeting at the Harrow Arena on September 12th at 6 p.m. Dale Molnar, CBC News, Essex.
A 26-year-old man is dead after a collision in South Windsor. Windsor police say a car and motorcycle collided in the area of Cabana Road West and McGraw Avenue yesterday afternoon. The driver of the motorcycle was transported to hospital with serious life-threatening injuries. Police announced he succumbed to those injuries today. That incident is being investigated by Windsor police. Windsor police are also investigating an overnight shooting in the city's West End. Officers found a 38-year-old man with a gunshot wound to his leg at around 11:30 last night. Police say the victim was sitting on his front porch on the 900 block of Wellington Ave when 2 individuals wearing hoods ran up and fired several shots in his direction. He was transported to hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. Investigators believe the shooting to be targeted. Residents who live in the area are asked to check dash cam or surveillance video for evidence. Well, Canada Border Services has strengthened infrastructure at border crossings to the United States. The agency is improving the perimeter fences, gate controls, and road infrastructure at 11 crossings. The move comes as a response to the Freedom Convoy protests that occurred at several last year, which led to the shutdown of U.S.-bound traffic at the Ambassador Bridge. Transport Canada estimates as much as $3.9 billion in trade activity was halted because of the blockades, leading to the Prime Minister's decision to invoke the Emergencies Act. The CBSA said other security measures installed at the border crossings include speed bumps, closed-circuit television upgrades, building access controls, and improved lighting. The agency says it will continue to look for more ways to improve safety at the border. The Canada Revenue Agency says it has fired more than 100 employees for taking advantage of CERB payments. The Canada Emergency Response Benefit offered $500 a week to workers whose jobs were affected in the first months of the pandemic. The agency says it has zero tolerance for inappropriate claims. Marina von Stackelberg reports.
The very government agency responsible for managing pandemic benefits for Canadians has now had to fire 120 of its own employees for taking CERB money they didn't qualify for. The Canada Revenue Agency is still investigating hundreds more. The union says the cases are across the country.
Some cases are black and white. People knew about the system, knew the criteria, and they still applied. And it's very hard to defend them. In other cases, some people have, I guess, a better case, or there was a misunderstanding or a lack of comprehension of the program, even if they work at the CRA. In some instances, some employees had a second and a third job.
The employees who have been caught will have to pay back the money, and CRA isn't ruling out involving the police if there was criminal wrongdoing. In a statement, the country's Minister of Revenue writes, "The confidence and trust that Canadians put in the Canada Revenue Agency is a cornerstone of Canada's tax system. The disciplinary measures imposed show that for us, it is zero tolerance. These cases must not call into question the integrity and honesty of the more than 60,000 CRA employees who work in an exemplary fashion to serve their fellow citizens." The CRA says some of its staff actually did qualify for CERB because they were on student contracts or temporary employees. Its investigation found about 30 people that fit that situation who will not be fired. Marina von Stackelberg, CBC News, Ottawa.
The Ford government has apologized many times for how it went about opening up the Greenbelt for development, but they're not going back on their plans. And as Ali Chasson reports, the opposition isn't making it easy on them.
I did vote for him. In the last election, he came out as part of his election promise that he wasn't going to touch the Greenbelt.
Unequivocally, we won't touch the Greenbelt.
And then went on to immediately, very soon after, change that tune.
And those changes are starting to show in Cherrywood, Ontario, as developers move in.
Within the last couple of months, the people have been moved out. You can see the signs are up, don't trespass. So obviously there's a different use for this land now.
Cherrywood is in the Durham portion of the Greenbelt, smack dab in the middle of one of the sections to be removed.
My understanding is they've lived there for about 40 years.
Both the Auditor General and Integrity Commissioner reports have felt like salt in the wound for residents of Greenbelt communities like Tim Silman.
We have a right to know, all of Ontario, what took place here.
Ontario NDP leader Marit Stiles says the government's apologies don't cut it.
I think we're just scratching the surface of what's going to come out.
In his report, Ontario's Integrity Commissioner found the Housing Minister's then Chief of Staff engaged in a problematic process with developers about which parts of the Greenbelt to open up for building. The Integrity Commissioner said, "The evidence paints a picture of a process marked by misinterpretation, unnecessary hastiness, and deception." And to all this, Minister Steve Clark essentially says, sorry, but
we need to build those homes for people who need them and deserve them. As minister, that's exactly what I want to do.
The Ford government is trying to move on from the Greenbelt saga, with ads on radio and social media over the last month. And with a meeting that happened just yesterday with Ford, Clark, and his federal housing counterpart, Minister Sean Fraser. When Fraser was asked whether he would like to see Clark fired.
At the end of the day, whatever controversy any minister, any government may be facing anywhere in Canada, we owe it to Canadians to work together. I can't choose not to work with someone who I need to partner with to build more homes for Canadians.
But for Greenbelt community members, a broken promise is hard to get over.
The Ethics Commissioner talked about the unethical behavior of many people in the government. Of course we've lost trust.
Ali Chasson, CBC News, Toronto.
A small community outside of Chatham is making history this weekend. North Buxton is hosting its 100th homecoming event. For the last century, friends and family with connections to the area have been gathering on Labor Day weekend for a chance to reconnect, unwind, and most importantly, pay homage to those who came before them. I headed out this morning for the start of the festivities to get a sense of the importance of this milestone.
So here's the infamous pear tree out in the soybean field.
The tree belongs to Shannon Prince's family. They've lived on the farm for generations. They settled in North Buxton after escaping slavery through the Underground Railroad in the 1800s.
That was where the first homecoming took place. You know, there was an idea, and from that idea, this amazing event took place. And that's where it all happened, underneath that tree.
And 100 years later, a homecoming is still happening. This must be such a proud moment.
It is a proud moment for us to be, for us. Oh my goodness, take that away.
No, but it's true. For the sixth-generation descendant, it's hard not to get emotional about the successes over 100 years. North Buxton was established in 1849. It was a place Black people living in Canada could thrive, with their own industries, school, and church.
I really try to emphasize the fact that you really do need to understand who you are, where you do come from, because we as descendants, you know, we are standing on the shoulders of giants.
Many of those giants can be found in the cemetery.
When you look at the cemetery and all those people that have passed and what they have sacrificed for us, we're honoring them through what we are doing today.
There's no telling how large this weekend's celebrations will be. Thousands have visited the area in years past, but the variety of license plates parked on the road indicate the event's importance.
Even though they move away, they have not lost that sense of community. I'm home.
This pear tree, where it all started, no longer bears fruit, but it allows for so much in the community to blossom as Prince's grandchildren, eighth-generation descendants, grow their own memories of the historic weekend.
It's pretty crazy that I get to be around for the 100th homecoming, and maybe more. Who knows?
Probably to the 150.
What do you think, 150 you'll be here?
Yeah, for sure.
And the event is open to anyone, not just people with connections to the area. Tomorrow there'll be a family baseball tournament and 3-on-3 basketball tournament. At night, a party in the park with a DJ spinning tunes all evening. And Sunday, there'll be a morning worship service, a historical reenactment, a talent show, and fireworks. And Monday, there's a number of events taking place, including the parade and unveiling of the 100th homecoming mural. Windsor, Essex was hit with a lot of rain this summer, which didn't make a lot of us happy, but it certainly pleased the plants in the region, soaking it all up. Those conditions may have contributed to the growth of Bertha, a 4-meter or 13-foot tall sunflower that unexpectedly popped up in David Garlick's backyard.
Holy cow. What do we got? 12 feet 9 inches. You can add an extra 5 inches on for the top head that got eaten. We don't really know. We think probably a squirrel planted it sometime in May. We didn't have one last year. We didn't have any sunflowers this year at all. Had them last year and the year before, but not this year. And then this one came up all by itself. We saw it initially back in May, but I thought it was a weed. But it was perfectly planted. It bisects the part of the little part of the gardens. And it just kept growing, so I staked it when it was about 2 feet tall. And then when it got about 6 feet tall, we just kept watering it, and that's all we did. We didn't feed it, we didn't put any manure around it, we just let it grow. We measured it with you here, so now we know that with the top head's been eaten. So without the top head, it's still about 13 feet tall. So with that top head and standing up straight, it's about 14 feet tall. And then by the time it got to about 13 feet tall, then it had multiple heads, and that's when I started posting pictures of it to Facebook. And it's named Bertha. We've been calling it Bertha for the last couple of weeks. One of my former students said, "You should call it Big Bertha," but I call it Bertha because that's more dignified. People have been asking me to take it to Harrow for the Harrow Fair, but to do that I'd have to kill her. I'd have to dig her up and then have to figure out some way of getting her to Harrow without destroying the heads. And so we're going to leave her there, and she's going to stay there until she ends up giving herself over to the squirrels and the birds.
Well, Bertha has a long way to go if she wants to set a record. That's because in 2014, one sunflower in Germany reached 9.17 meters tall. That's just over 30 feet. Well, there's a look at your tower cam right now. A beautiful night leading into a beautiful weekend. We have your weather forecast coming up after the break. Well, on Fridays, we've been highlighting pieces of art from the city's outdoor collection. But unlike many of the works, this latest piece we're about to showcase is part history and part architectural art. It's a section of the porch of Hiram Walker's original Detroit home, and it sits in Willisted Park. Here's the city's cultural development coordinator, Selena LaRock, talking about the porch.
This piece was built in 1805, originally the portico to Hiram Walker's home in Detroit. And when it was torn down in 1914, Hiram Walker's son felt this piece needed to be brought to Willisted Park to honor the father and the heritage landmark that helped to build the Walker legacy. This piece really signals past, present, and future. It's discussing the makings of the iconic Prohibition era with that mix of innocence and vice that is so intoxicating to us even today. It's discussing the legacy, the family that built a community. And it's discussing Walkerville, present, who we are and who the neighborhood wants to be, who the community will be going forward.
And the city's outdoor collection is growing. A new sculpture of legendary Windsor music producer Rosalie Tremblay will sit on the riverfront. It's expected to be unveiled on September 17th. Well, it's been a turbulent summer weather-wise. We've seen cooler, wetter conditions than years past. Conditions perhaps not all that favorable for standing outside to purchase ice cream. But we caught up with an ice cream truck owner to get the scoop.
The kids is happy. When I going to put the music, that's why everybody know that I am there, right? That's why I put them always is a music. Otherwise, more than 10 hours, we are hearing that music always. Strawberry shortcake, $6.50 please. Kids are always like a twist.
The ice cream twist.
Twist, chocolate and vanilla. Some kids banana split.
Kids are the biggest customer.
Yeah, they are a big customer too. I have big people, adults, you know that, right? Some pets have a customer too. Dog, my customer too.
We are joined now by meteorologist Nick Sirkovich. Nick, I could be wrong, but I've been checking that weather forecast a lot today going into the long weekend. I think we're in pretty good shape to stand outside, grab some ice cream this weekend.
Yeah, and a twist. I'm just going to say that it's not just kids, it's adults too, because that is my favorite as well. That and actually the twist with the chocolate dip.
Ooh, good selection.
Yeah, one of my favorite summer treats. So,
will you be itching for it this weekend?
Oh, well, I was itching for it today as well, but yes, I will. I certainly will be. You know what? Temperatures are on the rise. Today we had temperatures that were pretty much right on the seasonal mark. Not much in the way of humidity, but we had lots in the way of sunshine. So pretty good day, but it gets hotter. It gets continues to be sunny, and we see a lot more in the way of muggy weather moving in as well. So you will need that ice cream to stay cool. 23 degrees right now in the city of Windsor, humidex of 26. So again, not much in the way of humidity. However, things are changing. See this big sort of blob of red here in the central United States? That is temperatures that are in the 30s, low to mid 30s, and that is shifting its way eastward. We're looking at hot, hazy, humid weather moving in for Sunday. Well, even Saturday, but mostly for Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and into Wednesday as well. Lots in the way of hot, muggy weather, and it is going to come with some sunshine as well. Now, for tomorrow, generally sunny skies. However, we are looking at a little bit in the way of sort of light precipitation moving across, and this is just along the warm front here. So some areas along the shorelines of Lake Huron down toward London, and even kind of crossing Windsor in the later part of the day, seeing some isolated showers or maybe a risk of a thunderstorm there. Nothing too bad, not a whole lot in the way of rainfall, but we'll see some of these as we move through tomorrow. Then it clears out into Sunday, and basically sunshine is the name of the game heading through the next few. Little breezy tomorrow as well. We're looking at wind gusts up to about 40-50 kilometers per hour. That eases off though as we head into Sunday and through Monday as well. Forecast wise though, look at this, 28 degrees tomorrow, humidex in the low 30s, but Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we're looking at temperatures in the low 30s, humidex values approaching 40. So how's that for ice cream weather, Meg?
Perfect ice cream weather. Thanks so much for that, Nick.
Just eat it fast because it's going to melt.
Very true, very true. Thank you.
You bet.
Well, putting a dog in a car is one thing, but how about a bull? Coming up, we have a story of a man who was pulled over for transporting an interesting pet. Tens of millions of people in Hong Kong and parts of mainland China have sought shelter as Typhoon Seola approaches. Hong Kong has issued its highest storm alert. Forecasters say winds have reached almost 200 kilometers an hour. Authorities say it could be one of the strongest to hit the region in decades. They're warning of serious flooding due to heavy rain, with water levels reaching as high as 1.5 meters in some areas. Hundreds of flights have been canceled. Well, the federal government puts a lot of energy into preparing Canadians for a green future. It has already invested millions of dollars for new electric vehicle charging stations. Problem is, only a fraction of the number planned are up and running. The government is blaming the delay on supply chain issues and the time it takes to get permits and approvals. The CBC's Peter Cowan has more on what that means.
The federal natural resources minister has been traveling the country handing out money to build charging stations like this one. He was in Quebec City, where he handed out $25 million to build 1,500 new stations. It's a big priority for the federal government.
In support of our goal to add nearly 85,000 publicly funded zero-emission vehicle chargers to Canada's network, the federal government is investing to deploy more chargers where they are needed most.
But new numbers obtained by the Canadian press show there's a big difference between promising to build them and actually building the charging stations. Of the 43,000 that the federal government has committed funding for, only 7,600 are actually up and in use. That's less than 1 in 5. Overall in this country, about 10% of the cars being sold today are electric vehicles. The federal government wants to increase that, and one of the reasons that car buyers say they're reluctant to buy new electric vehicles is because of a lack of charging infrastructure. Federal government's own analysis shows that in the next 2 years, this country's going to need 52,000 charging stations, which means it'll be important for the federal government to go beyond just promising stations to actually building them. Peter Cowan, CBC News, Ottawa.
Police in Nebraska made an unusual traffic stop this week. It was a car with 2 horns and a massive bull behind them. The bull is named Howdy Doody. The police got a tip earlier about a man driving through the town in Norfolk with a cow in the passenger seat. Officers say they had expected to see a small calf inside the vehicle, definitely not a 900-kilo steer. The car had been modified to make space for the bull to ride shotgun. The driver was let go with a warning and told to take Howdy Doody back home. Well, that's it for CBC Windsor News. Don't forget, for news anytime, you can go to our website at cbc.ca/Windsor. Thanks so much for tuning in. Hope you have a great weekend. See you back here next week.